Thank you. I'm a great fan of Paul LePage and Jason Levesque, and I'm proud to be running in the same campaign with them. My name is Bill Beardsley. I live in the house my mother was born in Ellsworth, Maine. My great-grandfather went through Ellsworth Military Academy with Joshua Chamberlain. My wife is a Maine boat builder's daughter. I'm very proud to be here. My heart and soul is here. I'm extremely pleased that last night my oldest son, who left Maine because it wasn't conservative or Christian enough, called up to say that he was returning. And that was the high point of my life. That was the high point. I announced my campaign 2 days ago at Dover Foxcroft at Pleasant River Lumber, a family business. Let me start by talking about 350 years ago on the other side of the Atlantic, when the British ruled the waves, and their masts and their spars came from the Baltic Sea, and the Dutch blockaded the Baltic. So the British came to the coast of Maine, established a surveyor of the pines. And gradually it was a good relationship between the colonists and the landowners. It was a prized relationship. And they had a good thing, but gradually Parliament introduced one law after another, so eventually the Parliament of England claimed all the pine of Maine, including the pine that grew on private property. And Samuel Manning, a historian in Maine, dealt with that issue, and he said that that kind of action sparked the flames of rebellion, and that the White Pine Revolt that resulted did not end until the final revolution. Some of us in this room don't believe that revolution is over. Some of us in this room still believe that there's an unfortunate battle between the landowner, the property owner, the private individual, and the crown. That is an underlying reason for why I'm running for state government. Because I'm running for governor because I want to return that relationship so that the crown, the government, is limited and is a servant to the people, is not the dominant factor. If you take a moratorium, and the idea of a moratorium on the white pine that we could not use, what is a parallel today? And let's take energy. And let's look at the philosophy is that we have a moratorium on every single source of energy in this state, but the cause du jour, the current celebrity, it happens to be wind. Now, I'm not against wind, and I see them talk about the wind that's in Norway off the coast, but that's backed up by Norwegian hydro. You go to Denmark and you look at the onshore wind, and that's backed up by nuclear power. You look at what Obama says about getting rid of CO2 by 17%. To do that in this country, after all the alternate energy, you need 150 nuclear power plants. And you ask yourself, with 3,500 miles of shore frontage that is privately owned in this state, could we not somehow allow 3 private landowners, 3 miles, 1/1000th of our coastline, to build those nuclear power plants and produce low-cost energy? Right now, our electricity in this state is 50% higher than the national average. And there's no excuse for it. When I was a vice president of Bangor Hydro, we were the lowest cost producer in the Northeast. There is no reason we have to protect every peat bog. Everything you look at oil and gas. Why are we opposed to oil and gas? Ask yourself this question. Have you ever known anyone who canceled a North Cape cruise in Norway, canceled a game of golf in St. Andrews, Scotland, canceled a sail in the Irish Sea, canceled fishing in Newfoundland, canceled a bike ride in Cape Breton Island because there was oil and gas being drilled offshore? We have that same reserve. Our federal government has estimated that there is between $20 and $200 billion of net reserves in the North Atlantic, much of it off the coast of Maine. So you take all of Angus King's windmills, if you just drilled one well under one of those platforms and it spread out horizontally through piping, covered 40 square miles, if you hit oil, you would produce more energy, reliable energy, than all those other windmills combined. Or you just take Canadian hydro. You can be for it or against it, but we ought to look at it. I worked at Churchill Falls. I'm a builder. My dad was a builder up in the Arctic. There's low-cost electricity they want to bring down here. We may or may not want it, but we should put that on the option. Let's get rid of moratoriums, whether it's the white pine or whatever it is. Let's get rid of moratoriums and really try to open up the energy picture, if we can. Then Luke Brochu up there at Pleasant River, when he sends out that truckload of wood that is produced by 80 Maine people, and for every 80 Maine people that he employs, there are 4 Maine people that get jobs in the woods and upstream into the forest. And there are people downstream, because his byproducts, his chips go to Millinocket, his sawdust go to Lincoln, his bark goes. That's what free enterprise is about. That's what this country is about. That's what this state has forgotten that we're about. That is what we have to do with this state, is re-energize, reopen, that kind of thing. Some of these energy sources will succeed, some will fail. But let's ask ourselves, let's put it on the table. That's what free enterprise does. Let small producers, large producers get into the battle, get into doing that kind of thing. The other underlying issues, the whole issue is regulation. And I would maintain that most everybody in this room says, yes, we should have good, strict safety and health regulations. Our problem, our total frustration with regulations is uncertainty, delay, risk, the things that make it so that an average man or woman is trying to get a permit, trying to get a zoning change, trying to get an investment with the bank, can't get a decision made. It's a kind of uncertainty. And the other issue is delegatory authority. Some of our legislatures pass, they're elected. We can throw them out. They pass simple laws, and then they delegate all of the authority to an appointed bureaucracy over which we have no control, which has an incentive to preserve their jobs. We delegate too much. We need to have simple, straightforward laws that really are enforced, and if we don't delegate, we don't need so much bureaucracy. That's the kind of thing. And you look at delegatory authority, what's the harm? So the legislature comes up with a really 3 or 4 word bill that says we need to protect shore-wading birds, so we need to protect some vernal pools along the edge of the shore. And somehow that morphs into thousands upon thousands of identified vernal pools for non-endangered species, around which you have 750 feet of protected zone potentially, which is 40 acres. Now you take Granny, and Granny's going to retire on 40 acres. And what does she do? All of a sudden, if her son leaves a skidder rut, if Grandpa's old cellar hole out back there has some wood frogs or some purple salamanders, her retirement, her life savings, the things that she's saved, that's what agricultural and forestry people, you build. So when you retire, you sell off your assets to either your children or to somebody else. That's the price we pay for having delegatory authority. I accept the fact that legislature will pass laws, because if they're not good laws, we throw them out. Where the problem lies is that we delegate too much. And that's the kind of thing. The same thing is in education. All of us, I think, believe we've got to have accountability. Reading, writing, arithmetic. We want to know if our kids are competitive with other states, other towns, other countries. We want to know that. But all of that has evolved into this massive Maine learning results with complexities and social engineering involved in them. All of it's resulted in assessment programs, so teachers are out of the classroom 1 to 2 days a week, not with kids, but doing all of this stuff that's supposed to help kids. Now that's not the fault of the legislature or we as people. It's the fault of just this bureaucracy expanding and going on. And so we've got to get that kind of control again. You can take the unintended consequences of uncertainty. Take the 100,000 pound limit on the road. The tragedy of it is it's not for sure. It's not indefinite. Who in the trucking industry is going to go out and change their investment because of that? Because we need security on that kind of thing. Take those of you that invest in stuff in the Maine Equipment Tax Reimbursement Program. It's a wonderful program, a real inducement to induce. But every single year, there are proposals to get rid of it. I think what you need is a governor that simply says, I will veto those proposals to get rid of it. Not raise taxes, lower taxes, but give some kind of security so that you know what the result is.